Going to call this meeting of the County Council to order. Would Councilmember Bumparati lead us in invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you most humble as we know how, with all heads bowed, all eyes closed. We thank you for your grace and mercy. We thank you for your traveling mercies you've bestowed upon us. We ask that you continue to bless those who made their way out here tonight. We ask that you humble each council member, that we make a wise, sound decision as we continue to move York County forward. We ask that you bless each and every one of us here tonight. Lord, keep our servicemen and women in your protective, loving arms and care. Lord, bless these proceedings tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under appearances, Billy Dunlap is first. There are numerous people signed up for appearances. We would ask that you could, if everyone involved could, about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll hopefully have digested everything you can tell us. Thank you, Billy.
Council, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Excuse me. As always, I thank you for your service to York County, and I appreciate the everything that you do for our organization. What I want to do, this is just a quarterly report. I just want to go through some areas that we have been working on over the last few months. Some interesting material that I think you will be interested in when it comes to visitation in York County. Our preferred hotel program is going strong. We now have 8 properties that are a part of that, providing funding. We have budgeted about $300,000 this current fiscal year that will come out of that program. Yoko Brew Trail continues to go strong. We have right at 2,500 people that have signed up for the Yoko Brew Trail. We've had 5,874 check-ins. So that is people actually visiting the breweries. And we have an estimated spending of right at $146,000 inside of those breweries. So we're excited about the progress there. Battle at Rock was at Nation Ford High School. 32 teams, National High School Basketball Showcase, another tremendous success. We also hosted our MLK Showcase at the Rock Hill Sports and Events Center. I know some of you were able to make it out to that. So 2 good events, bringing in some of the top high school basketball teams around the country. The SIAC Men's and Women's Basketball Championships will be at the Rock Hill Sports and Events Center the first week of March. That is 28 teams from the SIAC that will be here. First round of games starts on Monday with the championship games on Saturday. We're excited about that event. The Yoko Taste Trail, just when we thought that the Yoko Brew Trail was a success, here comes the Taste Trail, and it has blown the Brew Trail away. We have been doing this just less than a month. We've had 636 people sign up for the Taste Trail. We've had 252 check-ins, and we have estimated spending right at $9,000. We've had several restaurants tell us that they have seen a significant increase in business because of the Taste Trail. Z Bakery in Fort Mill says that 1 out of every 3 people that comes in has got their phone and they're ready to check in, and I can't think of the dessert that they have, but it is they are excited about what the Taste Trail is able to do for them. Now, what I want to show you here, this is a study that we just did on who the visitors are into York County. And I think it's interesting to anyone that is a part of York County to understand visitation and where people come from and what they do while they're here. So we started a study about 6 months ago, and we selected 22 points of interest. And what we're doing is we're tracking cell phones. So we are tracking where visitors come into York County, where they go, how long they stay, and where they go once they leave their initial destination. So if they're going to Kingsley, we know that if they go to Kingsley, where do they go next? And we're tracking them throughout York County while they're here. And this tells us who our visitor is and where they come from and what they do while they're here. A visitor to us is someone who comes in outside of 50 miles. And when we looked at this, we said, okay, if we're tracking Kingsley, how do we not track LPL employees that come in every day that may come from 50 miles out? Well, if your cell phone goes to one location 4 nights a week from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., you are not tracked in this data. So what this tells us is who our visitors are. We know that Carowinds is our biggest attraction. Out of the total number of visitors that came into York County, 56% of the total visitors go to Carowinds. Interestingly, the next largest tourist attraction in York County is Kingsley. 13.2% of all visitors that come into York County go to Kingsley. And then we see Baxter is the next. Then we get into downtown Clover, which is surprising that it is that high on the list, but downtown Clover is the 4th busiest tourist attraction in York County.
Billy, can I stop you there, Billy? And can I ask you how you gathered that information, what the source of that information is?
It is cell phones that come into that geographic area around downtown Clover that are coming from outside of 50 miles. So we're tracking them over a period of time.
How long have we been doing this?
We've been doing this about 6 months.
Okay.
And we partnered with the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority. They are doing this. They reached out to us, Cabarrus County, Mooresville, and Lake Norman. And we are all participating in this study. So what this does is this tells us where our visitors are, where they're going when they come into York County. And you'll see as it goes down the list there.
Billy, can I just ask you too? I'm sorry. I think it's important to understand where the generation is coming from. Is it a text that's generated to folks who actually stay in a hotel in the area, or?
It is once your signal comes into that area and you're tracked. So if your location services are on your phone and you come into that geographic area and your home location for your phone is outside of 50 miles, it tracks you once you come into that destination.
Okay.
It's very big brotherish, but it does tell us.
No, so people off the grid aren't going to be on there.
Trust me, we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones doing this.
Your grocery stores track which aisles you go up and down.
But what this, and as I get into this, you'll kind of be able to see where I'm going with this. So we're saying that more than 75% of our visitors reside in South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Virginia. Good information to know. Nearly 2 in 3 visitors reside in these top 10 markets: Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville, Anderson, then Columbia, Raleigh, Durham, Fayetteville, Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, then Charleston, and then it drops off pretty significantly from there. So what this tells us is where we need to be targeting our marketing. Before I got here, we were casting a very wide net across the Southeast to get visitation. Well, we're seeing here that here's where the majority of our visitation comes from. So those are the markets that we need to be focusing on when it comes to marketing. So top 10 markets are within a regional drive. Here's our visitation over the summer peak hours. So you'll see Q2 and Q3 are, of course, our largest visitation because of sports tourism and the waterways. But you'll see Q1 and Q4. So these Q1 and Q4 are the times of the year that now we're focusing on. Because we don't need to bring more people here in June and July. We got plenty. So what we're focusing on is January, February, March, October, November, December to fill those shoulder dates. So this is information that's helping us spend our marketing dollars wisely. So you'll see the kind of the bell curve on the summer months. So now what this also tells us is where the visitors come from in each destination. So I'm gonna skip Carowinds because that's kind of, Carowinds is kind of a variable that we really don't need to track. Kingsley. It's interesting to know that the Kingsley visitation is pretty steady, which would make sense because they don't have special events that would peak visitation. But you'll see that most people that come to Kingsley that are visitors are coming from Columbia. Then Raleigh-Durham, Greenville-Spartanburg, Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem. So now when we're marketing for the Taste Trail for Napa, we're marketing in Columbia, Raleigh-Durham, and Greenville-Spartanburg, because now we know that's where those visitors are coming from.
Billy?
Yes.
Do me a favor, and flip back to the
Okay?
Carowinds one, just, all right, you can flip back to the other one. My question was this, if someone showed up at Carowinds, spent the whole day, spent part of the day, and then they were looking for a place to eat, if you weren't gonna eat immediately off of Carowinds Boulevard, the next exit, if you're not headed north, is either 88 and you're gonna keep rolling past 88 and going down to 85, and there's Kingsley and Baxter, which happen to be two of your largest areas. Are you all able to track in any way the people who exit Carowinds and then just happen to go eat because they're on their way back home to Columbia
If they
on
come
exit
in, if
85?
they stop in York County again, yes, we do track them. And part of another slide on here shows clusters, which, let me jump ahead. And I wasn't gonna go through all those slides, but you'll see that when they come to Carowinds, the next highest traffic area they go to is Kingsley. If they go to Baxter, next place that they're most logically to go is Kingsley. If they go to Kingsley, then they tend to go to downtown Fort Mill. Now, these are the higher percentages. These are the top clusters. So when they go to Carowinds, they're also going to Baxter, just like you said, they're coming down 77. One thing that's interesting, when they go to downtown Clover, they also go to downtown York. So you've got a historical value. Those are typically history buffs that are coming into Clover, coming into New York. So this has given us information on how we can be very strategic in our marketing. We also know if they come into the Cap in Fort Mill, they're going to Manchester Meadows because they're either playing soccer or lacrosse. So that's the information that we're able to gather from this. This is data that we will be tracking every quarter. And what it does, like I said, it tells us who our visitor is, it tells where they come from, it tells where they go while they're here. So what it does is it helps us be a little smarter when it comes to how we spend our marketing money. Because we know that Kings Mountain State Park, almost 19% of their visitation comes from Greenville-Spartanburg. Well, that's coming because of their closeness to 85. So now, if we're promoting things in Kings Mountain State Park, we're gonna focus on Greenville-Spartanburg. Now, Memphis, I have no idea why Memphis is second on Kings Mountain State Park, but it's gotta be some event that has brought them to Kings Mountain State Park, because that's a large percentage compared to the other visitors. But you'll see also the diversity of the visitors that come to Kings Mountain State Park. Tremendous diversity when it comes to location. So my point behind showing you this is really just to kind of give you a snapshot of who the visitors are that are coming into York County, where they're coming from, and how we're trying to reach them to get them to come back more often and get them to do other things while they're here. I think that's important information to know. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't want to go through all these slides, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Dr. Blackman?
Billy, with like the Kingsley thing, obviously it's just the restaurants, right? Kind of a location of convenience from Carowinds, because they're headed south back to Columbia or whatever. Are you gonna put like filters on this to kind of the true site destinations versus, hey, we just gotta find a restaurant nearby?
Because what we're doing now is we're drilling down into specific dates. So we want to know when Summerfest, we want to know what that visitation is. We want to know what the visitation is for Strawberry Festival. Because what we feel is that both of those festivals are predominantly for locals. Well, if they're predominantly for locals, then that changes how we deal with them, how we market them. So as we're getting this data, this is the second report that I've gotten, we're starting to drill down now into more detail with each destination and with times of the year, because we want to know, who's coming and when they're coming specifically, not just time of the month. We want to know specific days that they're coming. So then we can track how events affect the visitation.
Mr. Roddick?
One thing I'm kind of missing with some of your slides, we can throw up percentages. Do we have any raw data as to the number of people? Like, these percentages represent a total of how many people,
Yeah,
about
I
10,000
can
people,
tell you
20,000?
exactly off of each one of these slides, how many people were tracked into that destination at that time. I didn't put it on the slides, but, I can tell you that these percentages over here for Kings Mountain State Park, that comes from this amount of people that we were able to track into that destination during that time period. Yeah, I'm kind of a data guy, so I've spent a lot of time with this, but this helps us really be smart when it comes to how we market York County. And I think it's important that kind of the links that we're going to really make sure that we're marketing York County correctly and marketing it to the right areas and the right people.
Chairman Johnson.
Allison? Ms. Love?
Can you send us this so that we can go through
Yeah.
the things that you don't
Yeah,
have
be
time
glad
to? And I'm interested in those numbers too, and I'm just wondering if Clover, when you say Clover, is that all of District 2 or is that like downtown
And
Clover?
it's just downtown Clover.
Okay.
Because basically what we do is we selected destinations and then we just hand draw the radius around that area, just like Emporium Athletic Park would be the same way. We're not tracking anything down to the intersection, it's just that area.
Okay.
So the downtown area is pretty much just the area of downtown, yeah.
And Allison beat me to it. I was just gonna ask for this presentation. So
Yeah,
if you-
I'll be glad, and I'll send you the whole thing. Yeah, it's about 40.
I'm a
some
numbers
slides.
guy, so I like to.
Yeah, so I didn't want to bore you with that tonight, but, be glad to answer any questions. You guys know how to reach me. I certainly do appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you here in a few months.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Jan Smiley with the U.S. Department of Commerce Census Bureau.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you about the 2020 census. Like Michael said, I am Jan Smiley. I live in Fort Mill. I've lived there for over 30 years, and I'm here representing and hoping to get you to all become ambassadors for the 2020 census, and that includes everybody on this side of the room as well. Let me just remind everybody why we do the every 10-year census count, and it's because it's a constitutional mandate. We have to. Doesn't matter what kind of budget cuts we have, doesn't matter if we're at war. Every 10 years in this country, it is a constitutional mandate that we count everybody who's living in the country. We've been doing it since 1790, every 10 years. Used to be done by marshals on horseback with little tick marks for people. Now we're a little bit more sophisticated than that, and I'm going to talk about some of the changes with the 2020 census in just a minute. You have a folder that gives you lots of information that you can look at later, but primarily I want to highlight what I call the 3 pillars of the 2020 census. The first one is the importance of it. Why is it so important? We get that raw data, and that raw data is used for 2 things, money and power. That's what it comes down to. The money, currently, the number that we are quoting is over $675 billion, with a B, billion dollars annually is allocated by the federal government across the 50 states based on the head count that comes out of the decennial census. So that's every year for the next 10 years, and we know that number will likely go up over that 10-year time period, but it's $675 billion every year that is determined where it's going to go based on the head count. The other is the power. We all know that legislative districts at the local, state, and national level are often redrawn after decennial census. If you remember, in 2010, South Carolina gained a House seat in the U.S. House of Representatives based on our population growth from 2000 to 2010. There are states this time around that know they are at risk of losing a seat, and they are investing some serious money to make sure that their constituents know how important it is to get counted, because you gotta have the numbers. Applying for grants, asking for SNAP money, school districts looking for money. We know what the road situations are in York County, but if we don't have the numbers to back up our grant applications and our pleas for help, we're not gonna get the aid. That's just how it works. It's just that simple. And we get one chance every 10 years to get it right. If we mess up in 2020, those are the numbers that we have until 2030. Louisiana has really been hurting in the last 10 years because for the 2010 census, a lot of people were still displaced from the hurricane, so they were not counted. So when the state most needed that money for reconstruction, if you also look at the map of what seats gained in 2010, Texas gained 4 seats because a lot of those people had moved to Texas. They might have moved back to Louisiana in that amount of time, but since they were counted in 2010 in another state, Louisiana didn't qualify for that money for the last 10 years. So they're really trying to get an effort with their citizens as well to make sure that they get counted. So the money and the power, those are the two main important things that census data is used for. Let me just stipulate that it's not the Census Bureau that allocates that money, and it's not the Census Bureau that does the redistricting. The Census Bureau just provides the raw data. So that's the first pillar of the 2020 census. The second one is our need to impress on people the safety and confidentiality of the decennial census. First of all, the Bureau itself has a 72-year confidentiality on any personal information that comes out of the census forms, the decennial census. We're just after the raw data, the numbers, that will be used right away. But your name, your address, your birth date, that is held under lock and key for 72 years. So people who do genealogy research are anxiously awaiting the 1950 census, which will not be released for 2 more years. So that there are people who are waiting for that data, but people need to know that any information they put on the 2020 census form will not be divulged until 2092. That's Bureau-wide. As a Census Bureau employee, all of us are sworn to a lifetime secrecy. If we divulge any personal information that we might come across while we're doing our job, 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. So it's basically paid community service. We don't make that kind of a salary. People don't risk that. But while people are so concerned about identity theft and their data and information and Big Brother, I hate to, we just need to remind people that that information is confidential. That means we can't share it with law enforcement. We don't share it with landlords. So if people have more people living there in their apartment than what they're supposed to, that's between them and the census form. We don't share that information with anybody. If they're qualifying for benefits, nothing is affected by what they put on the census form. What's important to the Census Bureau is that we get an accurate count so that the resources come back to the communities based on the numbers of people who are living there. So that's the second pillar of the 2020 census. The third, that is the most exciting, I think, is the difference between the previous 22 times that we've done the decennial census and the 2020. For the first time ever, we're gonna have a choice as to how we respond to the census form. It's always been done on paper. This time, we're gonna have 3 options. We're gonna be able to fill it out online. We're gonna be able to call a toll-free number and have a sworn census person take our census information for us. Or if people are more comfortable, there will still be the paper option. So you might be wondering how people are gonna know the difference. For 220 years, we've done it one way. Now we're making a little tweak to it based on keeping up with the times. Starting in the middle of March, and there's another flyer in your folders on the invitation, we're calling it an invitation to participate. About the middle of March, most households in the United States will get a mailing. It'll come to their address as occupant or resident, not to a particular person who lives there. It will have a geocode attached to that address saying, here's your invitation, here's your this access code is linked to your address. Please go online, put this code in and fill out your form. If people don't get that number, for example, if they get their mail at a post office box, Census Bureau doesn't mail census forms to post office boxes because we want to count people where they live, not where they get their mail. So if somebody gets their mail at a post office box, then they can go online and there is an option on the website for I don't have an access code. And then it's the computer and people's responsibility to link up the address and if there was any kind of a geocode with that. So it's not going to keep people from responding if they don't have that code with them. The other option is the toll-free number. The census form and the toll-free number this time around are both going to support 13 different languages, including English. There'll be specific toll-free numbers for the different languages, so if you're looking to fill out your census questionnaire in Spanish, you'll have the census phone number for a Spanish person to pick up the phone. The language support for filling out the form will be in 59 different languages. The census form itself isn't, but there'll be instructions online in somebody's language showing them how to fill out that form. So those are the two new ways to fill it out. And then the other will be the paper option. So like I mentioned, most households will start getting mailings about the middle of March. We're working with the USPS to try to stagger that so that the very first time we go online for applications, we don't have 300+ million Americans trying to fill out the form on the same day. So we're staggering the delivery of the invitations. About a week later, people, if they have not filled out the form or gone online, will get a reminder postcard. There'll be 5 mailings in total. The 4th mailing will include the paper form. So if somebody's waiting for that because that makes them more comfortable, then that will come to them in the 4th mailing. The 5th will be a reminder that we'd still like people to go online or call the toll-free number or mail back the form. But if they don't, please cooperate with the census taker who's going to start showing up on your door about the middle of May. So we've got a 5-week window in there before we start trying to deploy people to get that information. 2 reasons we feel it's really important to encourage people to self-respond. That's what I call if you go online or if you call the 800 number, is we feel that there will be more accurate information if someone is filling that out in their privacy of their own home on their own time, rather than somebody standing on their front porch taking that information from them. If they're trying to, if they have more people living in the household, maybe if they fill that out without somebody looking over their shoulder, they're going to be more honest about it. The second reason is the expense. It's incredibly expensive to send census takers to every address of places where people don't self-respond. There's another sheet in your folders showing in 2000 and 2010 the South Carolina participation rates or self-participation rates by county. And you'll see on that form that in 2010, 81% of people in York County self-responded, which sounds great. And it is. We led the state in 2010, and that is something we should be proud of, and something that I hope we continue to do in 2020, that more people in York County will self-respond than any other county in the state. But if you think about that 81%, that still means that 19% of people did not respond. So that's almost 1 out of 5 homes in York County that had to have somebody come to the door. And if somebody wasn't home the first time, then 1 out of 5 homes had to have somebody come to the door a second time. It's very expensive to follow up. So we're trying and hoping that with the self-response online or by phone, that will increase the self-participation rate. So those are the 3 pillars of the 2020 census and how people will be invited. Why I'm here is to ask for your help. There cannot be enough census ambassadors. I have found, I worked for the 2010 census also in Rock Hill, and I have found that the more people know about what census data is used for and the more they realize how it impacts lives, the more invested they become in making sure that we get as accurate a count as we can in our county. It is vital. We all know how our area has grown in the last 10 years, but again, if we don't have the numbers to back that up, we can complain all we want about our needs, but if we don't have the numbers, the money doesn't follow, and neither does the representation. So my goal here is to get you all invited to also become census ambassadors, and for you guys, there's a sheet that I left on that table out there about kind of an overview of census that I hope you'll take with you and share with everybody you know. I hope that you don't go anywhere or talk to any of your neighbors or do any public events or go to church from now until the end of July without talking about the census. We're going to start deploying census takers about the middle of May, and they'll work through as long as the end of July to try to catch people at home if they don't. Anytime in there, people can still self-respond. I'm really hoping to get the county to consider forming what we're calling a complete count committee. The name is self-explanatory. Typically, county complete count committees, we call them CCCs, Census Bureau loves acronyms, is to get people from all of the different towns in the county engaged, somebody, you know, the faith leaders, business leaders, large HOAs, people who represent different demographics that we consider hard to enumerate. All of those groups, if they had a representative on the complete count committee and could take that information back to their groups, that's infinitely helpful. And just a little highlight on a couple of the hard to enumerate groups that really affect us. We don't know why, but for some reason in 2010 across the country, up to 1 million 0 to 5-year-old children were not counted. We don't know if that was split families and each parent thought the other was counting. We don't know if it was grandparents taking care of the child and they didn't count them because they're the grandparent. We don't know if it was foster care. We don't know if it was large families. We don't know why, but we do know that between 2010 and 2015, almost 1 million 0 to 5-year-olds and their parents showed up looking for daycare slots or trying to register for 4-year-old kindergarten and nobody knew they were coming. So we're really trying to get a big push on for that young child population, working with a hospital to get something put in the newborn parent packets so that parents know to count. The elderly, we're also concerned about this time. Normally, that's a population you can count on to do their civic responsibility, but we always tell the elderly not to give out any personal information online or to anybody who calls you on the phone. Of course, the Census Bureau won't call you, but you would call them. But now we're saying, oh, unless it's a Census Bureau worker, then please give them your information. So that's another safety and confidentiality thing. We know that people take advantage of situations. So we've already had people trying to scam, pretending to be census workers. So it's important to get that information out there as well about what a Census Bureau, what ID a Census Bureau will have, that you can call the local office to make sure that that person is employed, and to know that if anybody asks for a social security number or a bank account information or money, that they're not from the Census Bureau, because we don't ask for those things. So it's important to get that information out as well. But mostly I'm here to spread the word and to get you all involved and aware of what's coming, because it is less than 2 months away before we all start getting that mailing, and it's really critical that we get an accurate count in the area. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And I appreciate what you do. I mean, that's, common sense says this has to be done. But a question I have, so you said there's like over 50 languages that people can speak to. So, I mean, if you're, it doesn't just count legal residents then, it counts anybody in the house?
Anybody who's living in the United States, the reference day for census is April 1st. So it's anybody living in the country on that day, and the Census Bureau's take on that is if people are living here, they're using services, they're using the hospital, they're using the roads, they're using the schools, therefore we need the money to support the services.
So elected officials can be based on illegals.
I'm sorry?
So when they decide boundaries for elected officials, senators, representatives, it can be biased if they have a lot of illegals in that area.
That's a question that somebody above my pay grade would be answering.
Mr. Roddy?
I want to first start by saying you did an outstanding job of educating us and those who are watching on TV or online. My first job, I worked for the census. I was 16 years old, and so every time we get a piece of mail that comes through, I talk to my son and my wife all about the importance of doing and participating. And actually, I went online and filled out a little survey recently for the census. One thing that I do know, those groups that are hard to reach sometimes don't want to put their name, don't want to put any statistics to their location because, one, they may be, somebody may be looking for them, there may be some legal situations, and just not understanding the importance of it, that, you know, we don't take the census because we're trying to locate individuals, but we need to take the census because we need to, like you mentioned, for road money, daycare money, school money. It affects electoral districts, the whole gamut. But I would hopefully, my wish and hopes and prayers are that everyone participates, and if there's anything I can do to help, I'll certainly be willing to be an ambassador to go out and do whatever. And like you mentioned, there's not going to be any conversations going forward that none of us should not include in our public meetings or Facebook or anything that we're doing to educate people, because we're the faces that hopefully the public trusts to say, hey, this is not for these purposes. Here are the real reasons why you should participate and update your family information. So I appreciate you educating us.
Thank you for that. And you reminded me of two things. One is the importance of telling everybody in the area about the jobs that are going to be coming up. York County is really behind in its recruiting goals for the people who will be following up at households where people don't self-respond. We need 1,000 more applicants across the county. And that also is online, and there is a flyer in your folders as well. It's 2020census.gov/jobs. Information's on that folder. So telling everybody, the minimum pay in the area for field positions is $15 an hour. People get reimbursed for the mileage that they drive. They get paid for training, and then once they're done with training, it's a completely flexible schedule. They can work before and after another job, before and after they drop off kids for school. They can work weekends, evenings. So it's great for people who just want to do paid community service. Those field positions will probably only last about 6 weeks, but thank you for doing that when you were 16. A lot of people like myself who've worked for Census, once you realize how important it is, you come back. And it is sort of we all know that the train is coming in 8 weeks, you know, because we have a deadline for getting the job done, but it's really rewarding. The other thing that I wanted to, let's see, that was one. You were talking about people being concerned about filling it out because of someone finding out where they are. And I like to do a tiny little history lesson which impresses on us the confidentiality of it. In the 1950s, the Truman family was moving out of the White House for the major White House renovation, and Secret Service was trying to get information on people that lived in a particular neighborhood where they were considering moving the Truman family to see, you know, who's going to be living there, is that okay? And the Census Bureau would not give the Secret Service that information, so it's pretty secure. And they've actually, Congress has clamped down even more on security since then. Thank you. Anything else?
One more. So with the workers that go out there and take the census, they get a flat fee, correct? They get paid a certain amount and that's it? They don't get a bonus for reporting more people or anything like that?
No, they get paid $15 an hour. They get reimbursed the mileage that they drive for work. There'll be field supervisors, so they'll be assigned a particular route, similar to the way we, that UPS or FedEx routes people around to be efficient.
So it's just a flat fee?
A flat
Plus-
hourly fee, correct.
Plus the gas
The re-
reimbursement?
Yeah, we say in census, the reward for good work is more work. So the good people, the people who are doing a good job, you know, if we finish in one area and the county next to us is behind, they'll have the opportunity to travel to work some additional weeks. But we're looking for early retirees, people who are just, you know, looking for, you know, gig workers, somebody who's just looking for 6 weeks of work to have extra money for the holidays or family vacation, and to know that they help their community.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Jan.
you.
Wally Buchanan to address council regarding the Baxter Lane cul-de-sac.
Yes, thank y'all. It's a privilege to be here. Thank y'all for the time y'all spend away from y'all's family to be here for the county. I'm retired military. One thing that helps me with the topographical and geographical maps. And I'm a retired Baptist preacher. I promise I won't preach, but I may take up an offering. We have a situation at Baxter Lane. Baxter Lane is a family road that has been in the family since 1947, 46. The road was maintained by the family until the county took it over. It was a deeded access when my wife's grandfather bought the property from the Eubanks family. The Eubanks family has since then, Mr. Tom Eubanks has passed away, and his children have decided to, about 200 acres, to divvy it up and sell it out. And one of the sons has sold out and moved to Clemson. What we would like to do, this Baxter Lane, first of all, it was a surprise to us. And I brought some clippings out of the paper. This is what's going on the state level with the state roads, and this is what's going on with the city of Rock Hill. They are informing the people of the projects that's going on, Pennies for Progress, the Panthers Stadium and such as like that. We're in the dark up there where we live, Mike. You're our county councilman, and I think you can understand. We have inherited a 2 million gallon water tank adjacent to our property now. You know exactly where it's at now, don't you, Mike? Me and you've had conversations about that. Right. The proposed, they want to take Baxter Lane. When they did the water tank, they told us that they were going to pave Baxter Lane. They didn't say they was going to cut it in half, put a cul-de-sac, and give the new property owners access across Baxter Lane and cut off our road. Are you aware of that?
We can't answer questions, so
Oh, we
we're
can't?
here
Okay,
just to
good.
listen, so.
Well, we will have some private conversations. The company out of New York bought 43 of the worst acres in York County. It's on the backside of Eubanks, across from, on Gold Hill Road. It's the backside, no access going in, no access coming out. It backs up to our property. It backs up, if they do their warehouses, 3 warehouses right at 1 million square feet will be in my backyard. We'll be looking out of our new glass sunroom, enjoying watching the trucks load and unload. Our property has been encapsulated by the zoning that was allowed around us. I represent the 9 families that live there. I have also communicated with Chip and Artie that owns Metrolina Body Shop, and Michael that owns the Triple M car lot on the corner of Baxter Lane. None of them wants Baxter Lane cut off in a cul-de-sac. They have property there. It was a surprise to me, it was a surprise to them. Our property has been encapsulated. We maintained that road. In 1999, I started bush hogging the side of that road and been bush hogging until the county decided they would come and bush hog for us, and I appreciate that. The cul-de-sac creates a trash pile. The county has already tracked down some trash hauling people that dumped there. The trash is still there. They couldn't make them clean it up because they were from North Carolina. This will create more dumping on that cul-de-sac if it's made a cul-de-sac. It creates trash piles. It also creates lover lanes. I do the policing on that road. I have a little golf cart and I go around, I pick up trash and pick up litter, and there's evidence of lovers lanes activities at nighttime on that lane. At least they are practicing safe sex. So I'm out there gathering up that, and if you cul-de-sac that road, it's only gonna get worse. It's gonna be a cul-de-sac, it's gonna be a place to park while you steal from behind the buildings and businesses that are already there. The impact study. Now, the impact study was done before that they realized there was gonna be 1 million square foot warehouse and that there's a new school. The Eubanks also sold property to the county for undisclosed value. I don't believe y'all bought that land for $1. I find that hard to believe with the Eubanks. But there's gonna be a public school on Gold Hill Road at the creek. Are y'all aware of that? You can't answer. But that was not put in the study of the public school being put out there. The highway department has plans, and I have them here, for 21 and where Baxter Lane meets. Baxter Lane should be a crossroads to Garrison Farm Road with Charles Garrison property there. It is not. It is a mismatched crossroads there. If they're going to work on Baxter Lane, they need to make Baxter Lane match up to Garrison Farm Road, because when 21 comes and the highway department does their plan, then they're gonna have to fix it. So my problem is, we're gonna be cut off and isolated. We're gonna be emptied into 6 warehouses for our residents to go in and out of. I have an 89-year-old mother-in-law that still drives. It will put her in danger. I have a letter from the fire department chief stating that, I think I sent everyone a copy of this from the fire chief stating he does not believe, from David Jennings, as I'm the fire chief for the fire district, I'm responsible for providing fire protection services and medical first responder services to all residential and commercial customers in the area surrounding Baxter Lane and Central Carolinas Parkway. On January 20th, I met with Walter and Esther Buchanan, who live at Baxter Lane, discussed the changes. He says, the proposed plan would terminate Baxter Lane coming off 21 with a cul-de-sac and rename that portion Carrick Court. 9 residents with several established residents would have to utilize Central Carolina Parkway to access their property. Emergency responders would have to use Carolina Parkway as well to access these. Central Carolina Parkway already serves multiple distribution centers, and this planning project will add 3 more distribution centers to Central Carolina Parkway. I am very concerned with the congestion on Central Carolina Parkway due to the distribution centers. Most of the time, they already are tractor trailers parked along Central Carolina Parkway. The planned growth will continue to place more traffic on Central Carolina Parkway. Fire trucks and ambulance would be forced to go further up 21 and turn on Carolina Parkway and then turn left on the new road to be named Logistic Lane, which would lead you into Baxter Lane residence area. There could be access problems due to the tractor trailers parked along Central Carolina Parkway for staging or sleeping, as well as the potential for tractor trailers to back up past Logistics Lane while waiting to get out at the red light on 21. It is much harder for tractor trailers to open up a path for emergency vehicles than it is for passenger vehicles. Emergency responders' access would be best served by leaving the current Baxter Lane open as it currently exists. There could be simply stop signs added where the existing Baxter Lane would cross over the proposed Logistic Lane. Our proposal is if that company has to cross there, and we understand that they had to buy some more property to come off of Carolinas Parkway. And the big deal now is they're dealing with the 8% grade to get from Carolinas Parkway to their property. And there is a big hill going up there. Very simply said, if they need deeper, they can cut that grade and put a tunnel under Baxter Lane, because when y'all pave Baxter Lane, it will be us in and out. I know that the Panthers is gonna put in an intersection to serve them. They could put a tunnel bridge under Baxter, which would just be a matter of moving dirt to their location, because they're gonna need it where they build the warehouses anyway. Cutting us off, and I feel sure that there's no special preference given to this company just because they're from New York and they're a big company. The name of the company is the Rockefeller Center, and I cannot sword fight with a windmill. I know that. I know I am fighting a losing proposition without y'all's help, and that's what I'm asking for. I have a 16-year-old grandson that lives on our circle. I don't want him to have a wreck, and I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want my mother-in-law to die waiting on responders to come get her, because she is not as well as she was 20 years ago. I talked to one person on the county. They said the only thing the law would require was we have access to our property. Well, I questioned that about having safe access to our property. And they said, and that person told me that if the company owned both sides of the road, they could cut off Baxter Lane. Well, the funny thing is, I own property on both sides of Baxter Lane, and I asked her if I could cut it off. And she told me I could not cut Baxter Lane off. And I think that if I can't cut it off, why can Mr. Rockefeller cut it off? I mean, I think everybody will be treated the same. Our property value has dropped. We have statements from real estate agents, our property has dropped since the water tower came in. My mother-in-law owns a $350,000 house that she tried to sell, and she can't get $200,000 for it. People said, all that industry around us in the water, that 2 million gallon water tank is a liability. We can't even sell property out there. We're not gonna be compensated for it. It's a bad deal when it went through. I'm here asking for help. I have made mention plenty of time. I would like to meet with the planning board. The property they bought to go into Carolinas Parkway would be a simple fix if they would go around the backside to existing Ross Dress for Less, who has an asphalt road meeting the property that they're wanting to put Rockefeller on. It'd be a very simple fix just to go around our neighborhood, leave us alone, and let us enjoy a quiet and peaceful life out there. And that's what I'm asking for. And the reason I brought the paper, I would really like to have communications. As a Baptist preacher, I'm a big fan of quotations. And I remember one of my best quotations is from Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Now, I have talked to David, and David didn't even know that the county had bought land for a school there. And I would suppose that we would talk among ourselves. Y'all are representing me, and I'm representing y'all by voting for you, and I need help. And I'm asking all of y'all, put yourself in my family situation. We've been there since 1946. We just asked for a peaceful existence. We have maintained that deeded road. We were surprised, blindsided. I have a friend of mine that owns the body shop that's going to speak next, and he's going to tell you some of the situations they run into. And I'm not saying that, I used one word with the county official, and I could really tell that I used the wrong word. And I'm learning new words from Fox News. It's called quad pro quo. And if you sell me some cheap land for a school, I will make sure your land gets a right of way to get in and out, no matter what anybody else says. And I was assured that was not the case, and I'm glad to hear that, because I thought this county council would be above that, and the planning commission would be above that. Now, our little section of the county up there is all that's left of county. Everybody loves Fort Mill. Let's move there and change it. And that's what they've done. All the whole families are moving out. Their kids can't afford any land up there. We've all sold out to industry, and we've all sold out to, and the young man that spoke, I wish I had an eloquent speech like he does and had all the statistics. The road that we live on, we pick the time of day that we go out that road. You don't go out in the morning because the traffic is backed up all the way past Flint Hill Fire Department at Captain Steve's going north. If you've been there, you know. We can't come out in the evening because Ross Dress for Less is doing shift change. So we pick our times, what time we can come in and out of that road. The highway department has slated upgrades, and they have plans for what they're gonna do. I think all this stuff they're wanting to do behind us could wait until the state did their part. Then they would be more organized, and y'all are gonna be, our county is gonna be doubling work, because whatever you do now is gonna have to be redone when the state does their portion. And I simply would love for y'all to communicate with us as residents and business owners, what the plans are, keep us informed. And because I've got a saying, none of us is smart as all of us. And I believe as a group of citizens and county representatives that we can make York County a better place to live, less congested. And if I had my way, we'd put the brakes on everything until our roads could handle what we've already got. I really believe that. Thank you for your time, and I ask y'all to have compassion on our family. If something happens to my mama-in-law, I'm gonna call you, because I do love my family, and thank you. Oh, by the way, this is for Brother Monterati, and appreciate the prayer, brother. And you know, before I came, I prayed and I asked God to give me guidance. So I seek guidance from the smartest man that's ever been in the world. His name was Solomon. In verse 17 of chapter 18 of Proverbs says, "He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him." You know, this plan sounded good when they presented it to the planning commission, because it was just buttered real good. It sounded good. But when you ask the people it affects, it doesn't sound that good. And so I wish you would consider that, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Tiffany Knight to address council regarding in the meantime recovery.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Tiffany Knight. I am the founder and director of In the Meantime, a transitional residence for women in recovery. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my story. I am not a stranger to substance abuse. I understand the havoc, the discord that it can cause a family. At the age of 21, I entered my first treatment program, inpatient treatment, and my father was completing his. Unfortunately, my father passed away in 2007, but he did pass away clean and sober. He was a Vietnam vet, and when he returned from Vietnam, our whole lives changed. As I mentioned, when I entered at 21, my first treatment program, I did complete my 30 days, but I was placed right back into the environment that I had left. Subsequently, I relapsed. And I'm going to share a little bit about that relapse with you. In 2002, my sponsor at that time picked me up in front of an abandoned building. I was 115 pounds. I had on a pair of dirty jeans, a t-shirt, a blue jean jacket, and a pair of blue house shoes. She asked no questions. She put me in her car. Tears rolled down my eyes, tears rolled down her eyes. We rode in silence for 45 minutes. After approximately 45 minutes, we stopped, and we stopped in front of a beige brick building. She said, "You have two choices. You can get out this car and go into that building, or you can get out the car and go your own way." At that point in time in my life, I was mentally, physically, and spiritually bankrupt. I chose the brick building. She gave me 2 packs of cigarettes, a lighter. I turned around and I said, "I don't have any money." She said, "You don't need any money. I'll see you later." I walked into that brick building. It was a detox center. I did 7 days at that detox center. After the 7th day, it was time for discharge. And on that 7th day, I had the clothes I walked in there with on my back. I had a bus pass and 1 phone call. That phone call I made to the Goodwill shelter. When the lady answered the phone, she said, "Tiffany, I don't have any beds." And she had been telling me this for 7 days, because I had to call each day while I was in detox. She said, "Tiffany, I don't have any beds." And please keep in mind, I had already been accepted into a 90-day drug and alcohol treatment program. But I had nowhere to go because a bed was not available for 10 to 14 days. I had, again, burned every bridge I had ever crossed, so I had nowhere to go. I made that one phone call. I spoke to the lady at the Goodwill shelter. She said, Tiffany, I don't have any more beds. She said, but I do have a mat on the floor. I begged her for that mat on the floor. I left there. I said, please hold that mat. I'll be there as soon as I can. The detox center gave me a bus pass, that one phone call, as I mentioned, and the clothes I had on my back. I got on that bus. I got to the shelter, and I vividly remember holding that blue mat, you know, the ones you used to have in gym, those blue mats, that blue mat under my shoulder. And we went to shower, and while the other women were getting ready for their bed, I laid my mat on that floor in the hallway. And that was the best sleep I had in a very long time. But as I laid there, I kept asking myself, what am I gonna do in the meantime? Each day, I stayed at that shelter for 10 days. And at some point, each day I had to go and attend an outpatient program in order to stay on that waiting list for that inpatient bed. And I did that each day. Each day I returned back to that shelter. I would lay down in that hallway on that blue mat and ask myself, what am I supposed to do in the meantime? Excuse me. Today, I am no longer 115 pounds. See? I am a taxpayer. I am a daughter. I am a cousin. I am a niece. I am employed, and I am a homeowner. I am also the founder of In the Meantime. In the Meantime is a 501c3 organization, and what we do is we bridge the gap between that wait. The experience that I had, I don't think anyone should have to have that experience. We are not just a house. We have purposely input some programs into our structured environment. We'll have relapse prevention. We'll teach job readiness, financial literacy, and life skills. Sometime we may have to teach those life skills, but we'll also may have to reteach those life skills. Our average stay is 6 to 9 months. Once leaving, as I did, a detox center, this is the most vulnerable time for any person that has a substance abuse problem. And when I say substance abuse, please keep in mind that includes alcohol. Alcohol is also a silent killer. It just kills sometime a little bit slower. This is the most vulnerable time for people. If they have nowhere to go and they're waiting on a treatment facility, or as I did, burned all bridges, this is the most vulnerable time for them. I want to give you, for those of you that like statistics, 91 people die daily from drug and alcohol overdoses. If you multiply that by 30, that is 2,730 people that die daily. That information is from the Centers of Disease and Drug Control, I believe it is. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the specific name. This is someone's mother, father, sister, brother, child. In 2017, I was reading an article in the Herald. In 2017, in York County alone, 46 deaths were due to overdoses. Unless it happens to you, sometimes we just don't really understand the importance of it. 46 deaths due to overdoses. And in the Herald, they also stated that this will increase by 400% by 2019. Of course, we don't have the data yet for 2019, but if you turn your TV on every day, I can guarantee you, you will hear something about the epidemic of the opioid epidemic and crisis. What we need. Our first residents, as a member of the National Alliance of Recovery Residences, you can look that up. It's very informative. It gives you information on different levels of recovery residences. We would be, in the meantime, would be a level 3 recovery residence. And what that means, if you ever heard of Oxford House, they're very independent. They can kind of come and go, they pay their rent, they work. In the meantime is a level 3. Oxford House is a level 4. The difference within the meantime is we have some structure, but they still can come and go, but we do have some structured programs. We are not a clinical treatment center, so I want to make that clear. We are a safe place to assist these women as they move toward their long-term recovery. Our first residence will be in York County. We have identified some properties. We just don't have the funding to open the property. Myself and my board members, we've received phone calls, and as I've attended many of the National Alliance of Recovery Residents, I'll shorten it for NAR, they've asked me, Tiffany, is your house open? I had to turn away 3 people this week. I had to turn away 4 women last week. I don't have the funding to open a house. However, we are holding our first award ceremony where we will award Keystone Recovery, Faces and Voices of Recovery, Mr. Bob Rice, Faces and Voices of Recovery of Piedmont. He works a lot with the drug courts. Also, we will honor one of the outreach workers with Oxford House. That is March 12th, 2020, and it will be held at the Museum of York County. We need your support. As you know, any organization, especially nonprofits, one source of funding will not keep us up and running. We have to have multiple sources of support, whether it's funding, partnership, sponsorship, continuously. Our tickets will go on sale February 12th. We are also in need of experienced board members. We're not going to be a fly-by-night, one day up a year and down. We want to set an example to show that this is needed and that this works. We need a board treasurer, secretary, development officer, and we also need committee members to serve on committees that report to these board chairs. And most of all, any heart and soul of a 501c3 foundation or organization are volunteers. We need volunteers for pre-opening and long-term activities. For more information on In the Meantime, feel free to visit our website, itmrecoveryresidence.org. Feel free to contact me, 803-627-8767. Again, I appreciate your time, and I thank you.
Thank you. Public forum is next. I would remind everyone in public forum, you have 2 minutes, and literally at the 2-minute mark, I will cut you off. So please, would John Lane come forward? Please state your name and address, please.
Good evening, council. My name is John Lane. I live at 269 Birch Tree Road. It's in County District 2. Y'all have been presented with what is known as a Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. I'm a member of a South Carolina Carry, which is a grassroots pro-Second Amendment organization here in South Carolina. I deal a lot with our legislators down in Columbia, and I get legislative updates regularly from multiple legislators in the House and in the Senate down there. There is a plethora of anti-gun, unconstitutional, anti-Second Amendment bills that have been proposed and filed. There is a current tsunami and tidal wave of Second Amendment sanctuary ordinances going around this country. Namely, our biggest ones in Virginia, and now it's sweeping through North Carolina. Gastonia, Iredell County, Lincoln County just passed theirs. I would hope that we could trust our legislators to use a little bit of prudence when they look at these bills and they compare them with what the Constitution says. But I've seen one too many times testifying before state house subcommittees, state Senate subcommittees through South Carolina Carry, that a lot of times our pleas and our testimonies, facts fall on the deaf ears because we have too many legislators down there that are beholden to their party and are nothing more than a yes man or a yes woman to the party. What this ordinance will do will make York County a Second Amendment sanctuary, that any gun bill that is passed by our legislators in Columbia, the county deems these bills to be unconstitutional and fly in the face of the Constitution, then our law enforcement in York County will not enforce these laws. No county money and no county personnel will be used to enforce draconian, unconstitutional laws. The biggest one is the ERPO, or the red flag law. There's 3 of them been proposed in Columbia. These not only violate the Second Amendment, they also violate the 4th, the 6th, and the 14th Amendments. So I would encourage you, council, to look at this ordinance, make improvements on it if need be, to where it would set a precedence here in South Carolina that the residents of York County say, no, you're not going to violate the Constitution. And we are going to stand with the people of York County. We're going to stand with the people of South Carolina. We are definitely going to stand with the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of South Carolina.
Mr. Lane, I'm afraid I have to cut you off. Thank you very much.
That's fair. Thank you.
I believe someone had come in late and not been able to sign up and wanted to come forward. If you, again, when you come up, would you give your name and address, please? And you as well have 2 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Arthur Ledogar. I'm with H&A Associates. I have property on Baxter Lane, same with Mr. Buchanan. We're just concerned about the cul-de-sac issue and the fact of basic trespassing parts. We have a huge yard of cars back and behind our business, and we're concerned about a cul-de-sac being placed there versus a pass-through road where no one's going to be going in there anymore. Security issues, basically, for our business. We feel that the best pass for that would be one of the roundabout's, basically, instead of a cul-de-sac, and cut everything off. This is blocking in everything. So that's where we're at with it. I'm not.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
You're
sir.
welcome.
Under consent agenda, is there any deletions from the consent agenda or amendments to the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve consent?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Under public hearings, rezoning action, public hearing and consider first reading, case number 19-31, UD rezoning project. Is there anyone here who is against? Anyone in favor?
Move to close.
There's someone in the back that wanted to
Yeah.
speak.
You can speak, we can't answer questions during a public hearing, but you can certainly, I would urge you to speak with the county manager, Mr. Hudspeth, or Mr. Roddy after the council meeting. All right. We've had a motion and a second to end public discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. Is there a motion for first reading?
Move that we approve first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Roddy?
Yes, I would just like to say part of what's going on, and I know probably some of the questions are gonna come as to, hey, what's going on? I know probably a big concern of you guys is, what's going on with the Blackman Road rezonings, because I was over there on Friday, and some of these UD zoning to residential is over in the Blackman Road community, so I know you're showing up, so I'll be more than happy to speak with you after the meeting. Basically, what we're doing is making those lots residential lots. No one's proposed any buildings on them, but this is part of a countywide effort that we're going around. We're eliminating the UD zoning because it's in the middle of residential. If I understand it correctly, UD, you could put some type of business on it, and so we're stripping those zonings out of some of the residential areas. So now if someone wants to build a home over in the Blackman Road community on those lots, they're able to do it and it fits the zoning. So we're just doing basically some administrative house cleaning on UD zonings throughout the county. But I'll be willing, I'll meet up with you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, say none. Motion passes. Committee and other reports. Ms. Cox, you didn't have a meeting today, did you?
We did not.
No, all right. Very easy then. Are there any council member new non-agenda comments? Mr. Roddy?
You know I had to have one. If you guys look inside your packet, I know I had asked for an update from Linda, and I think Karen also helped her work on our employee outing. She was supposed to have had some solid numbers for us today. What you see is a screenshot of her communication. Basically, we're looking at, and it hasn't been finalized, basically the same offering that we had last year of about $10 per ticket, which includes the ticket to the game and some concessions, which was basically like a hot dog, pizza, and drink or whatever. So we're looking at about $10 per employee. I think last year we had a pretty good turnout, one that we haven't done this in a while. But this year, the game selection that we have is February 22nd, and it's going to be a double hitter. So family can go out and enjoy 2 basketball games for at the county's expense. And what I'm kind of proposing right now, since we don't have the numbers involved, the actual numbers, is to go ahead and get the wheels turning. So once she gets the final price for everything, she can go ahead and make it happen, because she needs to send out emails and get responses from people who are willing to participate. And so what I would propose to do in the very near future is to go ahead and give her the approval, preliminary approval, that to do up to about $10,000, to cover up to $10,000, and that's basically a couple hundred employees going out to the ball game, up to 1,000 people they can cover. And I think last year we didn't get that close, but a $10,000 budget will definitely give a good little bit of room for as many employees that could make it. David may have a comment on it.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think Kevin tells me we have funds available for that, so if we just get some indication from council that's what you want to do, I think we have the discretion with those funds to make that happen.
Okay.
Mr. Kendry? Yes. Will that require a formal vote of council?
Just to authorize the outing, I think whatever consistent with what we did last outing. I don't recall.
I can't hear you.
So we didn't vote.
Council didn't vote on it last
Council
time.
did not vote on last time? It just happened. All right. If someone has an objection, I would imagine this is the time to bring it up. All right. Are there any other new non-agenda member comments? Ms. Cox?
We had some folks that visited us today that we didn't get a chance to recognize. Grace Johnson was here with Elena and Scarlett. They're with Troop 109, and they came to get some perspective about what our council does. We had an opportunity to take a picture, and I explained to them kind of how council works. So I appreciate them being here, taking an interest in their local government. I would say, in response to some of our speakers tonight, I did not expect us to go this long. I actually thought that we would be done fairly quickly, so we took a little bit longer than what I expected. I think they wanted to meet all of the council members but could not do that. With respect to Mr. Buchanan's concerns, I would ask that council take a look at what the safety issues are with respect to that road issue. I do think it's important for us to at least understand what our staff position is on that. And I do want to recognize Ms. Knight, excuse me, Ms. Knight, how brave it is for you to come up to this council and share your personal story and to share with us what folks have done to make an impact in your life. And I'm so thankful that your life has seen a change. And I'm interested to see what council can do. If nothing else, I would ask that staff send out the link in order to buy tickets for the event that I think is coming up in March, that we would be able to participate in that. I think our country has done a terrible job legislatively on the national level, incentivizing these prescription drug sellers and now having this opioid addiction. It's not a mistake. It's because people forgot who they represent. It's because we forgot who we represent. And I'm not sure what the local response is to that, but I can tell you I appreciate the voice that you have. I appreciate you showing up and for you having your story, and whatever we can do to help, I'm certainly interested in following through with that. Thank you.
I want to give notice to the Public Safety Committee members that in the next 6 weeks or so, we're going to have a meeting, get with Andy on updating the fireman fund balance and concerns about that, and any fire department concerns and some other additional information Andy's going to present. Karen, if you could send out a notice, find out what works for them. I'm thinking probably a Friday at 12 noon, 11, whatever suits their fancy.
I apologize, I had to make the comment that you could do the finger in the air thing.
Of course.
Finger in the wind?
I don't know what you're
That is
implying there.
An inside council bad joke. Is there any other new comments? All right. Is there a motion, are there any citizen concerns? None? Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to go into executive session for a contractual matter involving Good Motor Company, contractual matter involving TIF update, personnel matter with the county manager search, receipt of legal advice and contractual matter on speculative building update, contractual matter Blue Granite contract update, receipt of legal advice and consider conflict waiver for Emily Brown, receipt of legal advice contractual matter on Riverbend conservation easement, and receipt of legal advice in a contractual matter with Children's Museum water damage insurance claim.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are in executive session.
About 2 hours.
There's your list. All right. Wilson Christie, Van Bunt. Wow. Iowa caucuses underway tonight.
Oh, yeah. No,
Brr.
They'll pick a
socialists, don't be a socialist.
come up with.
It'll be-
I'm missing
what's his
one.
name?
No. We'll give her a second. It is. Well, at least the air conditioning works. The heat doesn't always work, the AC does. You had to jump around some? Yeah.
There are conservation things.
Council has come out of executive session. Are there any motions?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve conflict waiver for Emily Brown.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
Motion to authorize the county attorney to finalize agreement with Nation Ford Land Trust concerning Riverbend Conservation easement consistent with conversation in executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
All right, and motion to name David Hudspeth, Chris Eldridge, and Melissa Cardinale as finalists in the county manager search.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. There a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Robert.